Board are everyone, so we're looking at percentages for the first part of this session today. Just going to give you a very brief recap before we look at some examples. As you selected number 5, I'm assuming you should be fairly comfortable with this. So just a recap, that to find 50% of any value, the easiest way to do this is to half the number. To find 10% of any value is to divide the full value by 10. So for example, if I was finding 10% of 140, I'd do 140 divided by 10 to give me 14. To find 5%, I would do the value for 10% divided by 2. So wherever the value is for 10%, so for example 14 in the last example, I would half that to get 7. And the value for 1%, there are two methods of doing it. You can either take the value for 10% and divide it by 10, or you can just take the original value and divide it by 100. Either method works. My preferred method is this method. Just works better in my head. You may be somebody who can divide by 100 and that's it's better with you. But that's just a brief reminder of how we calculate some percentages. Moving on now then, the first question we're going to look at is calculating 40% of 321. So we can't go straight to 40% without a calculator. Well, you could if you can do it in your head, brilliant. I can't do that, so I'm going to go through a structured method of finding 10% first. 10% is going to be the equivalent of 321 divided by 10, which gives me 32.1. I now need to find 40%. So to find any multiple of 10, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 and so on, I find 10% and then do some multiplication. So 40% is going to be my value for 10% multiplied by 4. So my value for 10% was 321. 32.1, sorry. I'm going to multiply that by 4. Now you may be able to do this in your head, however, if we're not able to do that, so to work out this multiplication then, the first thing we would do is multiply this value by 10 and then work out 321 times by 4. Now I do this in the grid method. You may do it slightly differently. However you do it, I'm not particularly bothered as long as you get the right answer. So we would do 300 times by 4 to give me 1200. 4 times 20 gives me 80. 4 times 1 gives me 4, which is 1284. That, however, is not the correct answer. As we multiplied by 10 here, we need to balance out that multiplying by 10 with a dividing by 10 to make sure the sum is in balance. So this would be 128.4. Therefore, the correct answer to 40% of 321 is 128.4. Okay, moving on to the second example then. This time we've got 5% of 78 kilograms. So again, to find 5%, as I said starting off, the first thing we're going to do is find 10%. So we are going to do 78 divided by 10. Now, this is going to give me 7.8 kilograms. And now, to find 5%, we are going to do 7.8, so my value for 10% divided by 2, so half of 7.8. Now if the divisor is a whole number, the divisor is what we are dividing by here, then we can go straight into a bus stop. So 2 into 7.8. 2 into 7 is 3, remainder 1, 2 into 18 is 9. Therefore, the answer here is 3.9 kilograms. You may have been able to do half of 7.8 in your head. If you can, brilliant. Another way to think about that would be to do half of 78, which is 39, and then divide your answer by 10. Lots of different methods, but the key thing is there, we're finding 10% and then half in 10%. On to the final example then, potentially a little bit more tricky one. So we need to find 17% of 30 miles. So to find 17%, I would calculate 10% first. So we know 10% is going to be 30 divided by 10, which is going to give me 3 miles. There are now two methods, so I'm going to split my page in half from here. You could find 5% next. So 5% is going to be my value for 10%, which is 3 divided by 2. Half of 3 is 1.5 miles. And then we could find 1%. So I'm going to take my value for 10%, which is 3 divided by 10 to give me 0.3. And then doubling that to give me 2% is going to give me 0.6. I would then add my values for 2%, 5% and 10% up to give me 17%. So 17% would be equal to 3, add 1.5, add 0.6, which is 5.1 miles. You may think that's a little bit hard work. You may prefer to do a slightly different method. The alternative would be to find 1% straight away. So I know 1% is going to be my value for 10% divided by 10. So 3 divided by 10 gives me 0.3. And then say that 7% is going to be 7 lots of my value for 1%. 7 lots of 0.3 is 2.1 miles. Therefore, my value for 17% is going to be my value for 10%, which is 3 miles, add my value for 7%, which is 2.1 miles. So 17% would give me 5.1 miles. As you can see, both methods end up at the same answer. You just need to pick whichever method you prefer. This video will be here throughout the form for you to refer back to should you need. There are then 5 questions for you to have a go at. Thank you very much.